All right. Hello. We'll be starting soon. Just going to set things up and we'll be ready to go. I do apologize for starting this episode later than usual. Uh, it pretty much is my fault. It's like nothing real, like to be concerned about. It's just more of uh, not having podcast notes fully done in time. But I still wanted to get it out tonight, at least. I know it's pretty late, but still want to get it out. Just about ready to go. Just have to set a few things more up, and then I'll be ready to go. Welcome and thank you for liking the stream. Just about to start. We'll get into in a minute why, I guess, more detail of why I started late. All right, let's begin. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Benny and Booth podcast. On this week's episode, we've got MLB Weekly Recap, some NFL headlines that popped up this week, update on Deshaun Watson, including update on Deshaun Watson, as that story is sadly, from Browns' perspective, not over, and Aaron Rodgers appearing on a podcast with a question that blows my mind, even from the fact that it's apparently known as a comedy podcast. Let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 44 of the Benny and the Booth podcast. Thank you so much for all your support to this point. I very much do appreciate it. If you are new here on YouTube, watching it on YouTube, whether live or after after the stream is over, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you're notified when I go live or post a video. If you're listening on audio, follow the podcast, leave a review, and turn the notification bell on so you're notified when I post on audio, which is pretty much usually within hours after I post it on YouTube, if not within a day, depending on how long I end up doing the episode for that week. This week, I ended up doing this week's episode later, more of just due to not having podcast notes fully done in time, which is really more my fault than anything. I should have been able to finish it by this morning, but I did not. It's my fault. I take blame and leave it at that. So it's my fault. Sorry about that. But I still felt, being that I do enjoy making these episodes, no matter how long it could be, no matter how much breath it could take. I still enjoy doing it. I still enjoy putting it out. I enjoy seeing the amount of people that watch my videos and streams and stuff, and I very much do appreciate it. Very much so, even though I'm still considered a small content creator on YouTube and even technically on audio, but either way, I still very much appreciate it. So, generally, I would start with MLB, but I actually want to start with this Aaron Rodgers thing I was telling you guys about. So, I don't know what day of the week he went on this podcast, but there's this podcast on Barstool Sports called Pardon My Take, and apparently I found out from someone tonight that it's apparently like a comedy podcast, but in my view, it didn't really change how ridiculous of a question this is. It could be you view this differently than I do, but either way, and it's with two people who's Big Cat and PFT commentator or something, commenter. I don't generally listen to this podcast, but I saw this clip and just was amazed by the fact that this question was even brought up. And I guess there's some sort of Bears fans or something, which makes it interesting, like Aaron Rodgers being on a podcast with Bears fans. And not related to what I specifically want to talk about, they also went into like Rodgers in the playoffs and stuff. Like one of the guys was like, I enjoy, like, even I'm a realistic Bears fan. I know the Bears suck, but I always enjoy seeing you fail in the playoffs, like something like that. But that's not on the part that I want to stress. So, to give context, just in case people might have forgotten about this, but honestly, it was so big that I doubt people have forgotten about it at this point. So just to refresh your memory, just in case, during the season last year, Aaron Rodgers missed a few games because of not being vaccinated and getting COVID when people thought he was vaccinated. And on this podcast, they mentioned the whole thing and one of the guys asks him, how many people did you kill with not getting vaccinated? On top of that, the other guy's like, oh yeah, did you kill how many grandmothers did you kill? What? Look, okay, yeah, it could be a comedy podcast, but still, even for comedy podcasts or trying to make a laugh podcast, there's still a barrier of a line to maintain for questions you're going to ask. That's way beyond. COVID's a whole serious thing. People actually lost their lives from it. And for all we know, I mean, I don't know because I don't personally know Rodgers and I don't know enough people that personally know him to know the true answer to this. But for all we know, maybe he has family that personally passed away from COVID, for all we know. I mean, it just was a ridiculous question to me. And even if you want to say it's a comedy podcast, if I was head of Barstool, I'd honestly show them both the door and fire them. Personally. That even for a comedy podcast, at the end of the day, you still have to have barrier of what questions you ask and what questions you don't. And that's crossing any barrier you would put. If I was Dave Portnoy, who was the head of Barstool Sports, I'd be kicking them out. I don't know. That's my view on it. If you have a view on it, let me know. Whether it's the same or different. But it just amazes me, and I just had to start off with it. Not something I usually talk about on this podcast, but it just, it's ridiculous that was even a question. And I found out about this actually through one-time guest. Hopefully we'll have him on more in the future as well. Rami Levy was the original person I found out about this, his posting on Twitter. But I don't generally listen to the podcast. It's Barstool Sports Podcast. part of my take. I don't know where you can find it, but you probably if you Google it, you can probably find it. I don't know if it's good or not, so I can't really give an honest review towards it. So I'm just gonna leave it at that before I get too annoyed about it, because I've gotten enough annoyed about it right now that I just want to move on from it, not talk about it anymore, and leave it alone because it's just kind of ridiculous at this point. Anyways, moving on. 1 second here. I want to change something because all MLB games are actually going on right now as we speak. I'll get into that at the end of MLB recap. Other NFL news. 2 players got extensions since we last met. Before I get into Deshaun Watson, Deontay Johnson signed an extension with the Pittsburgh Steelers for 2 years, $36.71 million. Good for him to get the money. He's been pretty good for them. Definitely deserving an extension. And then Justin Tucker got an extension with the Baltimore Ravens for 4 years, $24 million, with $17.5 million guaranteed. Good for him. He definitely deserves an extension. He's basically one of, if not the best kicker in the NFL. And I'm even admitting that as a Browns fan. Then again, Browns haven't really had that many great kickers in their history. But yeah, so that's really the NFL news outside of Watson. Now to get into the whole Deshaun Watson story. So when we last left off, it was labeled as a 6-game suspension and that there would maybe be an appeal. Well, the NFL is appealing it, and they officially... Hold on a second, because I didn't write the Watson part down. I probably should have in hindsight, but they have officially put former New Jersey Attorney General Peter C. Harvey to hear the appeal for Deshaun Watson hired by Roger Goodell. NFL is appealing it, and they're looking at potentially at least a year, as reported today, which, boy, oh boy, this is going to really get interesting. We don't know when this official announcement's going to come now. At this point, it could be it won't come out till closer to the regular season. But Watson is on the unofficial depth chart for week 1 of the preseason, which is this week. I will not be covering any of the preseason because, I mean, who really cares for the preseason? It's like players that want a last chance desperate to get on the roster before the season starts. And I've gone to preseason games, but it's not because it's also because it's much cheaper tickets, but it's not something I care about. So I won't be covering any games on the podcast. I mean, if you specifically want me to note of something of it, I can mention it, but realistically, I'm not going to mention anything from preseason games at all. But yeah, that's the latest on Watson. Sadly. So now MLB Weekly Recap. I will also note this week is the 2nd annual MLB Field of Dreams game in Iowa. Tonight there's actually, or it could be earlier, I don't know if it's still going on or not, was a minor league game between Quad City and Cedar Rapids, I think, or something like that. Had a minor league game at the Field of Dreams. But on Thursday, Cubs and Reds meet this year for the Field of Dreams game. Last year it was Yankees and White Sox. This year it's going to be Cubs and Reds. That will be Thursday night. Let's see, what time is that game? It will be on Fox. Check your local state listing for what channel number that is for your local. 7:15 p.m. Eastern starting time. It's going to be Drew Smiley for the Cubs and Nick Lodolo for the Reds. That game will be Thursday. It might not be a big matchup, but it's definitely fun because it's on an alternate site that's not always hosting games. And I'm excited, especially with the Cubs being in it and with how crazy it was last year. Probably won't be as crazy, meaning that both Cubs and Reds are sucking this year, but you never know. In baseball, you just never know. But that will be Thursday this coming up week. So in 2 days, at the time of this recording, obviously, it could be more or less depending on when you actually see this episode of the podcast. Anyways, into MLB Weekly Recap from this week. So from last Wednesday, 6-run first by the Mariners, Eugenio Suarez, 3-run homer, Carlos Santana solo home run. Suarez and Santana were back-to-back home runs for Seattle in that game. Jared Kelenic, 2-run homer, and 7-3 win versus the Yankees. Juan Soto in his Padres debut had a single in the 8th, 2 walks, a run, and a 9-1 Padres win versus the Rockies. 5-run first by San Diego. Jake Cronenworth's RBI hit by a pitch, scoring Juan Soto. And Brandon Drury in his Padres debut hitting a grand slam home run in that Padres game. Philly down 1-0, made a comeback with a 3-run 8th. JT Realmuto grounded into fielder's choice. That was originally ruled a double play, but overturned it into a grounder into fielder's choice that scored a run. That was then followed up by a Nick Castellanos go-ahead 2-run homer and Philly 3-1 win versus Atlanta. Trey Mancini in his Astros debut hits a 2-run homer in the second inning in a 6-1 win versus Boston. Yordan Alvarez got an extra strike instead of a strikeout and ended up grounding out the next pitch. Basically what happened was 1-2 count. It was strike 3, but no one between TV broadcasts, players, I guess the other umpires, actually realized it was strike 3. Yordan Alvarez got an extra pitch, but it didn't matter much because he just ended up grounding out. But it's crazy. If you really want to understand it more, find it on YouTube. You can easily find it on YouTube. Daniel Vogelbach had a grand slam home run for his first Met home run in the 5th and a 9-5 win versus Washington. 5-run 9th by Washington. All off Michael Givens in his Mets debut. Kyber Ruiz solo home run. Lane Thomas solo home run. Victor Robles RBI single. Luis Garcia 2-run single. Made it a bit closer, but the Mets still won the game. Going into the game versus Pittsburgh, Devin Williams hadn't been scored upon it in his last 30 outings, which is a Milwaukee franchise record, abruptly ended on the 3rd pitch of the 9th by Brian Reynolds' walk-off solo home run in the Pirates' 7-7 win. And I got Vargas in his major league debut and first AB hits his first career home run hit, gets his first career hit and RBI in the second inning and 3-0 win versus the Giants. Added another RBI in the 4th with save for the Dodgers. With the save for Craig Kimbrell, he passes Dennis Eckersley on all-time save list with 391 saves, 7th on the all-time list now, passing Eckersley. That is from last Wednesday. Last Thursday, the Cubs and Reds, this was announced, that Cubs and Reds will be playing in London next year, June 24th to the 25th next year, in London Stadium, where the last London series was. Very excited. Now, obviously, how good it could be will depend on what teams look like next year. But, hey, I'm excited to see the Cubs being in it, especially since this was a matchup that was supposed to be the matchup in 2020, but it didn't happen because, well, we all know what. But also, I mean, with how crazy the last time it was, who knows what it could be like this time. Angels hit 7 homers. Shohei Ohtani solo home run in the first. Kurt Suzuki solo home run in the second. Taylor Ward solo home run in the 3rd, Joe Adele solo home run in the 4th, Jared Walsh solo home run in the 6th, Shohei Ohtani another homer solo in the 7th, and Mickey Moniak solo home run in the 9th. In his first home run as an Angel, an 8-7 lost. Yes, they still lost this game versus Oakland because Oakland had a 6-run 3rd. Ramon Laureano game time 2-run double. Sean Murphy go ahead 2-run double. Seth Brown 2-run homer. Down 3-0, Cardinals put up 3-run 7th. Nolan Gorman solo home run and Paul Goldschmidt solo home run went going back-to-back. Lars Nootbaar sac fly to tie it, and then Lars Nootbaar walk-off sac fly to win it 4-3 versus the Cubs in game 1 of a doubleheader. Jose Quintana in his Cardinals debut against one of his old teams, the Cubs, going 6 innings, giving up 1 hit, 1 run, all earned, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, and a no decision in a 7-2 win versus the Cubs in the second game of the doubleheader. 6-run 8th by the Blue Jays. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. RBI single. George Springer 2-run single. Vlad Jr. 3-run homer in 9-3 win versus Minnesota. And then Pete Alonso 2-run homer and Daniel Vogelbach solo home run go back-to-back in the 3rd in a 6-4 win versus Atlanta. As from last Thursday, last Friday, in first home game since not being traded at the deadline for both Happ and Contreras, Wilson Contreras hit the go-ahead 2-run homer in a 2-1 Cubs win versus Miami. Matt Carpenter in his return to St. Louis for the first time, a single in his first AB and a single in the 3rd and a ground out to actually end the game in a 4-3 Yankees loss versus the Cardinals. He actually had fractured his foot last night on a ball that fouled off on a foul ball. Looked as bad as Yelich. Hopefully he's okay because the Yankees will need him down the stretch. They say that maybe he'll be back for the postseason. Right now he's just on the 10-day IL, which is definitely a relief, but we'll see what happens. Trey Mancini had a 2-homer game-tying solo home run in the second, and a grand slam home run in the third. A 5-run third by the Astros. Yordan Alvarez RBI single. Trey Mancini grand slam home run in 9-3 win versus the Guardians. 8 runs in the first 2 innings of the game by Atlanta. 4 in each inning. The first inning was Matt Olson RBI double. Eddie Rosario 3-run homer. That was barely off the end of his bat. And then in the second, Michael Harris solo home run, Dansby Swanson RBI single, Austin Riley RBI fours out, and Eddie Rosario RBI double in 9-6 win versus the Mets. Darren Ruff in first AB as a Met had hit a 2-run double in the 5th inning for the Mets, a part of 4-run inning for the Mets. And Kyle Gibson took a perfect game into the 7th inning, broken on a hit by a pitch, 4-run first by Philly. Rhys Hoskins solo home run, Nick Castellanos 2-run homer, Derek Hall solo home run, back-to-back with Rhys Hoskins, or not, with Castellanos, in 7-2 Phillies win versus Washington. That's from Friday. Last Saturday, Jordan Montgomery in his first start against the Yankees, his old team, got the win, going 5 innings, giving up 2 hits, no runs at all, 1 walk, 1 strikeout in a 1-0 Cardinals win versus the Yankees. 6-run first by Philly, Rhys Hoskins solo home run, Matt Vierling 3-run homer, Bryson Stott 2-run triple in 11-5 win versus Washington. 5-run 7th by Detroit, Jonathan Scope RBI sac fly, Harold Castro RBI double, Javier Baez 2-run double, Miguel Cabrera RBI single, and 9-1 win versus Tampa Bay. And Jose Barrero had a 2-homer game. Both his first 2 homers of the season, 2-run homer in the 4th, solo home run in the 6th, and a 7-5 win versus Milwaukee for Reds. That's from last Saturday. No, that's from last Saturday. 2 days ago, Sunday, Jacob Stallings 2-run homer and Ian Burdick solo home run and his first career home run go back-to-back for only runs of game in 3-0 win versus the Cubs for Miami. 5-run 4th, Nick Maton 2-run homer, Rhys Hoskins 2-run homer, Derek Hall solo home run, and 4-run 8th, Bryson Stott bases clearing 3-run double, Brandon Marsh RBI single, Nick Maton RBI double, and Philly for 13-1 win versus Washington. Derek Hall had a 2-homer game of this one, solo home run in the 2nd and solo home run in the 4th. 7-run 9th by Tampa Bay, Yu Chang RBI walk, Yandy Diaz RBI walk. And there's a crazier part to this inning, by the way. Oops. 1 second. Brandon Lau 2-run single, and Randy Arozarena 2-run double, and Roman Quinn RBI single in 7-0 win versus Detroit. Yes, all 7 runs were in the 9th inning to beat Detroit. 6-run 8th by Kansas City, Michael Massey 2-run single, Kyle Isbell 2-run double, MJ Melendez sac fly, Bobby Witt Jr. RBI single in 13-5 win versus the Red Sox. Paul DeJong hit his 100th career home run, 3-run homer in the 8th, and a 12-9 win versus the Yankees. 5-run 2nd by the Cardinals. Dylan Carlson RBI doubled, Paul Goldschmidt sac fly, Nolan Arenado go ahead 3-run homer also in that game. And Cody Bellinger had a 2-homer game, solo home run in the 3rd and solo home run in the 7th in a 4-0 win versus the Padres for the Dodgers. And then yesterday, Josh Donaldson, 4-hit 3 RBI game, 2-run single in the 1st, solo home run in the 3rd. Andrew Drew Benintendi, 2-hit 3 RBI game, RBI double in the 3rd, 2-run double in the 5th, in a 9-4 Yankees win over Seattle, breaking a huge, I think it was, 5-game losing streak. Anthony Santander solo home run and Ryan Mountcastle solo home run went back-to-back in the 3rd and 7-4 win for Baltimore versus Toronto. And that's it for the MLB Weekly Recap via games-wise. Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, also the Guardians DFA'd Franmil Reyes and the Cubs picked him up, and he just had an RBI single for the Cubs. I'll get into the score of that currently in a moment. But first, standings update, not including tonight's games. AL East, Yankees in first place, 71-39. At one point, we're on a 5-game losing streak, ending on a 1-game win streak, followed by the Blue Jays, 60-49, ending on a 1-game losing streak, 10.5 back in the division, 2 games up in the wild card, followed by the Rays, 58-51, ending on a 1-game win streak, 12 games back in the division, half game up in the wild card, followed by the Orioles 57-52. At one point, we're on a 5-game win streak, ending on a 1-game win streak, 13.5 back in the division, 1 game back in the wild card, followed by the Red Sox 54-56, ending on a 2-game losing streak, 17 games back in the division, 4.5 back in the wild card. AL Central standings. Twins in first place, 57-51, ending on a 1-game losing streak, followed by the Guardians 56-52, ending on a 2-game losing win streak, followed by at 1 game back in the division, 1.5 games back in the wild card, followed by the White Sox, 55-53, ending on a 1-game win streak with 2 games back in the division, 2.5 games back in the wild card, followed by the Royals, 44-65, ending on a 2-game win streak, 13.5 back in the division, 14 games back in the wild card, followed by the Tigers, 43-67, ending on a 1-game losing streak, 15 games back in the division, 15.5 games back in the wild card. AL West standings update. Astros in first place, 70-40, ending on a 2-game losing streak, followed by the Mariners, 59-51, ending on a 1-game losing streak, 11.5 back in the division, and a wild card team as of right now in the AL wild card standings. Followed by the Rangers, 48-60, ending on a 1-game losing streak, 21 games back in the division, 9.5 back in the wild card. Followed by Angels, 47-63, ending on a 1-game win streak, 23 games back in the division, 11.5 back in the wild card. Followed by the Athletics, 41-69, ending on a 3-game losing streak, 29 games back in the division, 17.5 back in the wild card. That's the AL standings update. For the NL, Mets in first place in the NL East, 71-39, ending on a 4-game win streak. By the way, I was actually at the Mets game last night, where Chris Bassett pitched great 8 innings. He did get into jams and got out of every jam. And honestly, I was even shocked he pitched all 8 innings. Mets won that game 6-1 with big help late. They were up 3-1. Could have been 5-1 actually way before, but Albert Elmore Jr., former Met, robbed the Mets of a home run. Mets ended up adding on in the 9th. Got dicey in the 9th a bit, but the Mets still held on to win. I'm blanking on what the score was last night. 5-1. Sorry. Anyways, ending on a 4-game win streak, followed by the Braves, 64-46, ending on a 3-game losing streak, 7 games back in the division, 4-game up in the NL wildcard standings, followed by the Phillies, 60-48, ending on a 5-game win streak, 10 games back in the division, a game up in the wildcard standings, followed by the Marlins, 49-59. At one point, we're on a 5-game losing streak, ending on a 1-game win streak, 21 games back in the division, 10 games back in the wildcard, followed by the Nationals, 36-75, ending on a 6-game losing streak, 35 games back and a half games back in the division, 24.5 games back in the wildcard. NL Central standings. Cardinals in first place, 60-48, ending on a 7-game win streak. Yes, the Cardinals are in first place of the division. Most likely, I think they're going to end up holding on and winning the division at this point. Followed by the Brewers, 58-50, ending on a 2-game losing streak. 2 games back in the division, a game back in the wild card. Followed by the Cubs, 44-64. At one point, we're on a 5-game losing streak, ending on a 1-game win streak. 16 games back in the division, 16 games back in the wild card, followed by the Reds, 44-64, ending on a 1-game losing streak, 16 games back in the division, 15 games back in the wild card, followed by the Pirates, 44-65, ending on a 1-game losing streak, 16.5 back in the division, 15.5 back in the wild card. And then the NL West standings update. Dodgers in first place, 75-33, ending on an 8-game win streak, followed by the Padres, 61-51, ending on one point, we're on a 5-game win streak, ending on a 5-game losing streak. And we're on a 24 scoreless inning streak going into tonight's game. I'll check in a moment when I go over what the scores are right now in tonight's games, if that ended or not. But right now, they're 16 games back in the division. They're a wild card team as of right now. And honestly, I think the Dodgers have the division under wrap after they swept the Padres. Followed by the Giants, 54-55, ending on a 3-game win streak, 21.5 games back in the division, 5.5 back in the wild card. Followed by the Diamondbacks, 49-59, ending on a 2-game win streak, 26 back in the division, 10 back in the wild card. Followed by the Rockies, 48-63, ending on a 5-game losing streak. At one point, we're on a 5-game losing streak, ending on a 1-game losing streak. 28.5 back in the division, 12.5 back in the wild card. Eight wild cards, that's for firm standings. Now the wild card standings in this order: Blue Jays, Rays, and Mariners are the wild card teams as of right now. Below that in this order is Orioles, Guardians, White Sox, Red Sox, Rangers, Angels, Royals, Tigers, Athletics, and then for the National League, the teams in the wild card as of right now in this order are Braves, Phillies, Padres, and then right outside of it in this order is Brewers, Giants, Diamondbacks, Marlins, Rockies, Cubs, Reds, and Pirates, and Nationals. That's the standings update. Now for what's currently going on in baseball, as there are games going on as we speak live. The Orioles and Blue Jays are playing tonight. And right now in the bottom of the seventh, it's 5-3 Blue Jays, and this game is in Baltimore. Adam Simber pitching currently for Toronto. 1 out, Adley Rutschman at the plate. This is at the time of the recording, obviously. Phillies up 4-1 on the Marlins. Bottom of the eighth, 1 out. They have Alec Boehm at the plate facing Eliezer Hernandez. Mets are up 6-2, 2 outs, top of the eighth. Trevor May pitching right now. Carrasco was started this game for them. Jake Fraley at the plate. 6-6 in the Braves-Red Sox game. Kenley Jansen pitching for Atlanta right now. Xander Bogaerts at the plate. 5-4 Cubs, top of the eighth. The Nationals have a runner on with 2 out. Oh, no, the Nationals just took the lead, actually, on a two-run homer by someone. Let's see who that was. They're up 6-5 with 2 outs in the top of the eighth right now over the Cubs. It was Joey Meneses, two-run homer, to give them the lead, but the Cubs just got out of the inning on a line-out. So now it's going into the bottom of the eighth. Astros up 7-5 over the Rangers. Bottom of the eighth, 1 on, 2 outs. Brett Martin pitching for Texas right now. Ledmus Diaz at the plate. 5-3 Brewers over Tampa Bay in Milwaukee, middle of the eighth. Rockies over the Cardinals, 12-3 right now. 2 on, 2 out for the Cardinals. Feltner pitching right now. Paul DeYoung at the plate. Angels up 1-0 over Oakland. Otani pitching right now. Marone Laureano at the plate with 2 runners in the corners, 2 outs. That's first and third. Diamondbacks over the Pirates right now, 2-0, top of the fourth with 1 out. Michael Chavis facing Tommy Henry. Padres have officially broken their scoreless streak just now, actually, as they scored a run in the fourth inning in a 1-1 game right now. They broke the streak via a solo home run, actually, from Juan Soto. I think it's his first, actually, as a Padre, so good for him. But anyways, so that's 1-1 right now. Twins and Dodgers are tied at 1, top of the second, 1 on, 2 out. Julio Urias facing Sandy Leon. Yankees and Mariners are scoreless in the top of the third, 2 outs. Luis Castillo facing DJ LeMahieu. White Sox and Royals have had 2 games today. The Royals won the first game 4-2. Brady Singer with the win, Lance Lynn with loss. Jose Cuas with a save. Just give me a bit here. And in the second game, the White Sox won 3-2. Davis Martin with the win. Jonathan Heasley with the loss. Liam Hendricks with the save. And then the Guardians beat the Tigers 5-2 in Detroit. Both of the White Sox-Royals games were in Kansas City. Shane Bieber with the win. Tyler Alexander with the loss. Emmanuel Clase with the save. And that is the full weekly recap for this week's episode of the podcast. And that is this week's episode of the podcast. Thank you. Let's wrap this up. And by the way, because 3 weeks, 9 days are over, I'm able to go back to having my intro, outro songs. We'll be back now on for pretty much a good amount of time. So let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this week's episode of the podcast. On episode 45 next week, we will have MLB Weekly Recap. We will have NFL news if there's any, and if there's any NBA news, we'll get into that. And if there's anything else, we'll get into that as well. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you are new here, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to the channel down below, leave notification buttons to notify when I go live or post a video. If you are listening via audio on any of the platforms I'm on, follow the podcast, leave a review, and put the notification bell on so you're notified when I post an episode on there. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I will see you next week. Bye.